Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to Biology 2. I'm Kirby Swenson. I'll be your instructor for this course. Let's go ahead and jump into Biology 2. You probably don't remember, but at the end of Biology 1, we were talking about macroevolution. We talked about all the major events, biological events of the planet, life on the planet. Now in Bio 2, what we're going to do is we're going to do what we call the survey of life. The survey of life is we're going to start with the simplest of organisms and make our way through to the most complex organisms. The simplest of organisms are bacteria. Let me pause for a minute and lay a little bit of groundwork. So there are three domains of life. The three domains of life are domain bacteria, or sometimes called eubacteria. Remember that EU, U, means true or good. So eubacteria means true bacteria. Domain eubacteria, domain archaea, both of those domains are what we call prokaryotes. Prokaryotes means they don't have a nucleus. Truly, it's what it means. It means before the nucleus. Pro means before. Kary means kernel. Kernel is the original word that was used to describe the nucleus that was seen inside of cells by early scientists. So prokaryote, oat just means representative of that group. So prokaryote means before the nucleus. Domain bacteria and domain archaea are both filled with prokaryotes. They don't have organelles. They've got ribosomes, but aside from that, they don't have any of the other organelles we're used to thinking about, like nucleus, rough ER, smooth ER, mitochondria, just the powerhouse of the cell, chloroplasts, and other things like that. The last domain of life, and what domains means, all living things can be classified into one of these three groups. If it's alive on this planet, it's either a bacterium, it's an archaea, or it's a eukaryote. The third group is domain eukarya. Eu, we just said, means true or good. Kary still means kernel. So eukaryote means, oat just means representative of the group. True nucleus. So eukaryote means an individual that has a true nucleus. So we've got three domains: bacteria, archaea, eukarya. Of those, the two simplest are the bacteria and archaea. So our scheme for the next dozen-ish chapters is we're going to discuss what we call the survey of life. We're going to start with the simplest organisms, bacteria, make our way up to the more complicated organisms called protists, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, and then make our way into plants, fungi, and animals. So our first group are the bacteria, domain eubacteria, or simply just called domain bacteria. We all know what bacteria are. When you hear bacteria, you think bad, ooh, bad. There are 10 times more bacterial cells in you and on you than there are your own cells. 10 times. 10 times more bacterial cells. You're more bacteria than anything else. It's not totally accurate, but still, there's so many more bacterial cells in you and on you. Within domain bacteria, we've got about 100,000-ish species of bacteria, and you think, oh my God, 100,000 species of things is trying to kill me. That's not true. Only about 100 species are bad. So that's really, if you do the math, only 1 in 1,000 species of bacteria are dangerous or hazardous. Most of them are harmless, if not, outright good for you. Most of them, and most that are in our bodies, are benign, which means they don't necessarily do anything for us or against us. But a lot of the ones that are in our bodies are actually good for us. One thing to pause and talk about for a minute. When we talk about the prokaryotes that are in our bodies, or on our bodies, it really depends on if it's in the right place or not, as to whether or not it's benign or beneficial. Because you have within your intestines, you have within your guts, E. coli. You've probably heard of E. coli. E stands for Escherichia. This is the scientific name for this bacterial species. Escherichia coli, often just abbreviated to E. coli. E. coli in your guts are fine. It's good. It's supposed to be there. It needs to be there. E. coli elsewhere, like in your food, is not good. So a bacterial species is beneficial or benign or depending on where it is. And if it's in the wrong place, it can absolutely be harmful. But only about 100 of them are out and out downright pathogens. Oh, pathogens. What does pathogen mean? Gen means to make or to create. Pathos means disease. So pathogen means disease maker. Pathogen is actually a big blanket term. It means anything trying to make you sick. It could be a bacterium. It could also be a virus. It could also be a parasitic worm. It could be a whole bunch of different things. So pathogen simply means something trying to make me sick. So only about 100 species of bacteria are pathogenic. You may not understand what you're looking at here. If I haven't already said it, I encourage you to have a copy of the PowerPoints open beside you so that you can look at the same slide I'm looking at with better definition, because I'm sure the YouTube video does not actually show the definition that well. Some of the pictures, it really will make a difference. So in this picture on the left, you probably aren't sure what you're looking at. What you're actually looking at is you're looking at the head of a pin, as in like a stick pin. So if this is the head of a pin, you know how sharp a pin is. You've been stabbed with a needle. This blunt tip that we see is that sharp tip. If this is that sharp tip, then how close are we in on this needle point? And the answer is really, really darn close. What are all these little dots that we see all over? Those are bacteria. These individual little dots, those are individual bacteria. How many bacteria that we see on the head of this needle? A couple hundred, maybe? Just to give you an idea for how small bacteria are. They're really, really tiny. We'll move on and talk about protists in a little while. Remember that protists are eukaryotes. Protists are like you and I, like trees, like mushrooms. They are eukaryotes. Bacteria and archaea are prokaryotes before the nucleus. Domain eubacteria, domain eukarya. Prokaryotes are really small, only about 1 to 5 micrometers long. Let's talk about this for just a minute. This funny shaped U that you see is not a funny shaped U, it's a funny shaped M. This is the lowercase m in the Greek alphabet. Its name is mu. This is the symbol for micro. We're in a science class. Science uses the metric system, so you have to understand the metric units. The unit of length of measurement in the metric system is a meter, and a meter is about so long. A meter is about a yard. It's actually a little bit longer than a yard. A meter is about so long. I can cut this meter into several smaller sections. I can cut it into 1,000 sections, and that's called a millimeter, and it's abbreviated as mm. 1,000 millimeters makes up 1 meter, and a millimeter is about so big. If you look at a period on your paper, that's about 1/2 millimeter. Another way to think about a millimeter is that a millimeter is 10 hairs wide. If you were to pluck a hair and line it up on the desk, 10 hairs wide is 1 millimeter. So can I break that millimeter into smaller sections? I just did. I broke it up into 10 smaller sections, 10 hairs. Can you break a hair into a smaller section? Well, some people get split ends. So yeah, hairs can be divided into smaller sections. You can actually divide that millimeter into 1,000 smaller sections. The 1,000 smaller sections of a millimeter are called a micrometer. It's spelled micrometer, but we say micrometer. And the abbreviation for micrometer is mu, m. So we're saying that prokaryotes are between 1 and 5 micrometers big, so really tiny. If it is 5, one of the big prokaryotes, 5 micrometer prokaryote, I could line 20 of them up across a human hair. So bacteria, really, really small. Eukaryotes, as in your cells, my cells, tree cells, mushroom cells, are bigger. Give or take around 10 times bigger than a prokaryotic cell. They're roughly 10 to 100 micrometers. So what we're saying here is the largest eukaryotic cells are about the same width as a human hair, and that's a pretty big cell, 100 micrometers. The biomass, prokaryote biomass, is 10 times all over life. And let's talk about biomass for just a second. Biomass means the mass, the weight of living things. So if I were to take all of the bacteria on planet Earth and put it into one bucket, a really big bucket, and put it in one bucket, and I take all other living things, not bacteria, and put them into another bucket, and all of the living things means all the plants, all the animals, all the fungi, everything, every tree, every whale, every elephant, every human, and put all of those in a second bucket. The bucket holding the bacteria would have to be 10 times as large.